The day I walked into the Wellington Equestrian Club in Texas, dragging behind me a suitcase full of secrets and 3 years' worth of quiet tolerance, I had no idea I'd be making headlines by sunset. The plan was simple. Gift my father, Robert Bennett, the legendary horse tycoon, an $8 million thoroughbred stallion named Silver King for his birthday. Not in my name, of course. I had it registered under my husband, Ethan Carter. He'd always wanted to prove himself to my family, and I wanted my dad to believe Ethan had finally made something of himself. I never expected another woman to step out in 6-inch heels, slap a gold-plated Mrs. Carter title on her chest, and try to claim the horse as her own. She called herself Vanessa Collins, said she was Ethan's wife, and introduced herself as the only daughter of some East Coast oil baron. Everyone around gasped as she waved a designer purse and ordered staff around like royalty. I was standing there in a plain blouse, jeans, and sneakers, with no makeup, looking like a nobody. She took one look at me and scoffed. "And you are," she sneered, flipping her over-bleached hair. "The help." I smiled politely and said, "Actually, I'm the one who paid for the horse 3 years ago. I have the papers." "Papers?" She laughed like I was a comedian. "Sweetheart, you can download anything off Google these days." I didn't even flinch. I just handed the stable manager the certified purchase agreement, the original wire transfer slip for $8 million, and the letter of delivery signed with my father's seal. The stable manager's face turned stiff. Vanessa's smirk cracked. "No, this is a mistake," she snapped, pulling out a black titanium credit card. "I'll buy it now." "Swipe it." The card reader beeped once. Declined. Again. Declined. "Call Ethan." She barked at the stable hand like they were her intern. "Tell him his wife is being disrespected." "Which wife?" I asked calmly. The murmurs around us exploded. And just like that, someone started live streaming the scene on StreamHub. Comments flooded the screen. "Why is this a mistress fight? Silver King belongs to the Bennett family? Who TF is Vanessa Collins?" Then Ethan showed up. In a tailored suit, dark shades, flanked by 2 bodyguards who looked like they ate steel nails for breakfast. Vanessa rushed to him dramatically, hugging his arm and whining like they were shooting a soap opera. "Honey, she's bullying me in public," she pouted. Ethan's gaze swept over me, paused, then dropped like I was gum on the sidewalk. "Claire," he said coldly, "don't make a scene." "I wasn't," I replied. "But you and your companion did." "We're filing for divorce," he announced. "Now." The live stream went insane. "Divorce? Wait, she's the real wife." "You've already filed?" I asked, arching a brow. "Didn't think you'd want to split assets so soon. There's still $300 million tied up in Carter Holdings. Unless you want me to call the IRS? His jaw clenched. Vanessa panicked. The color drained from her cheeks. She leaned close and hissed, "You're bluffing." "Try me," I said. Then I looked straight at Ethan and said, "You want out? Fine. But let's do it with style." I pulled out the signed prenup and divorce papers I'd had my attorney draft after the first time Ethan lied about a business trip. 3 years ago. The crowd gasped as I laid them on the saddle of Silver King. "Sign it here, Mr. Carter," I said sweetly. "Or should I address you as Mr. Collins now?" His hands trembled as he signed, trying to keep his fake dignity intact. Vanessa tried to snatch the papers, but I sidestepped, and she nearly fell into a pile of manure. "You think you've won?" she screeched. "I am the future Mrs. Bennett. You're just the charity case who got dumped." That's when I finally lost my patience. "You're right," I said. "I was a charity case. I paid for his education, funded his company, and handed him a black card with no limit. The same card you just tried to swipe. Guess what? I canceled it last night." The stream chat exploded. "Boss move. She's the one who funded everything. She's the billionaire wife." Vanessa's face was practically melting. Ethan tried to step forward, but I held up one finger. "Don't. You've already signed." That's when the crowd parted and my father, Robert Bennett, walked in, flanked by a dozen security guards. "Claire," he called out, "is this the surprise you planned for me?" I smiled. "One of them." I walked up to Silver King, patted his neck, and said, "Dad, Meet your new stallion. I bought him in your name, but I think it's time I stop hiding who I really am. My father looked at me for a long time, then turned to Ethan. So, this is the man who claimed to have built Carter Holdings from scratch? Ethan opened his mouth, but Robert raised a hand. Save it. We'll talk in court. The security team blocked Ethan and Vanessa's escape. I turned to leave. My phone buzzed with thousands of notifications. I didn't care. For the first time in years, I could finally breathe without pretending I was less than I was. This wasn't the end. This was the start of me reclaiming everything they tried to take. The moment I handed Silver King's reins to my father and turned my back on Ethan Carter and Vanessa Collins, I knew I wasn't just walking away from a marriage, I was walking straight into a war they didn't know they'd already lost. The StreamHub clip had gone viral in less than an hour. Real billionaire wife destroys gold digger live was trending worldwide. I didn't even post it myself, but by the time I got into the car, 100 gossip accounts were analyzing my outfit, my tone, and even the fact I didn't wear makeup while pulling off one of the most savage power moves of the year. But while the world cheered for my glow-up, I had no time to celebrate. My lawyer was already calling. Claire, he said, Carter Holdings just attempted to transfer $50 million offshore. Freeze it, I replied without hesitation. Use the ownership clause in the prenup. I still own 70%. On it, he said. Vanessa had thought she could strut into my life, wear my ring, and ride my horse into society fame. But she didn't realize she'd just stepped onto a chessboard and I'd been 5 moves ahead since day one. While Ethan scrambled to salvage his collapsing image, I walked into the Bennett estate and finally had dinner with my father without having to lie. So, he said, cutting into his steak, you married that Carter boy thinking he'd be different. I thought he just needed a chance, I admitted. I gave him money, trust, and time. But all he did was sell my last name for access. And this Vanessa woman? She's a con artist. She's not even from the Collins family. She used a fake identity to infiltrate my father-in-law's social club and latched onto Ethan the second he flaunted my credit card. My dad nodded slowly. We've seen this type before. I'll have Bennett Security run a full background check. If she's tied to any financial crimes, we'll press charges. That was the thing about pretending to be powerless for 3 years. People forgot I grew up learning how to dismantle billion-dollar empires before I could legally drive. The next morning, Vanessa went on social media live, crying with a full face of contour and wet tissues staged perfectly on the table. I didn't know Ethan was married, she sniffled. I thought Claire was just his crazy assistant. She stalked him. She forged those documents. I almost dropped my coffee from laughing. She had the audacity to say I forged an $8 million horse receipt in front of a notary? Cute. But I didn't reply. I didn't need to. By noon, StreamHub leaked the raw audio from the Equestrian Club's security feed. Vanessa's voice clear as day bragging. Once the horse is under my name, Ethan will take over Carter Holdings and we'll ditch that country club wife. She's probably folding his laundry somewhere. Oops. Turns out, Vanessa's fake heiress act was easier to unravel than her hair extensions. That afternoon, I called a press conference not to speak, but to submit evidence. My team revealed, 1. Vanessa Collins' real name is Madison Lee, with a history of fraud charges in New Jersey. 2. Ethan Carter siphoned over $10 million from company funds and used my private family account to lease luxury cars for Madison. And 3. Carter Holdings had been inflating its quarterly earnings with false contracts, which my accountant traced back to Madison's shell companies. The bombshell? I had screenshots, voice recordings, and signed statements from 3 employees who'd been bullied into silence. The media went feral. Claire Bennett exposes husband and mistress for multi-million-dollar fraud was the new headline everywhere from Forbes to TikTok. Ethan tried to respond by calling me vindictive. But baby, I wasn't being vindictive, I was being precise. And legal. So when the FBI showed up to Carter Holdings HQ with a warrant, Ethan and Vanessa finally realized I wasn't the woman they thought they married or manipulated. I wasn't the quiet trophy wife who smiled and swallowed her pride. I was the daughter of Robert Bennett. And I never played fair, I played to win. Madison tried to flee the state. She booked a private jet using Ethan's backup account, but security at the airport flagged her the second her fake ID didn't scan. Cuffed in heels and a fur coat, she screamed at reporters. Claire set me up. I'm pregnant. I wasn't shocked. I was just annoyed. Classic, I muttered to my assistant. Always the pregnancy plot twist. Should we respond? She asked. No, I said. Let the paternity test speak. Spoiler, she wasn't pregnant. Just bloated from stress and champagne. Ethan, meanwhile, tried to cut a deal with me privately. He called from jail, voice desperate. Claire, I was manipulated. She tricked me. You mean the way you tricked me into thinking you were a decent man? I loved you, he said. Then why was your signature on the offshore account? Silence. I hung up. That night, I walked alone in the Bennett stables, brushing Silver King's mane. It felt poetic. The same horse they tried to steal was now calmly standing beside me, like he'd known all along who his real owner was. Just like I now knew who I was without them. The woman who gave too much, forgave too often, and loved the wrong man too long she was gone. I was done hiding my name, my wealth, and my power behind someone else's mediocrity. The next morning, I stepped into the boardroom of Carter Holdings not as a wife, but as the majority shareholder. Ethan's seat was empty. Madison's portrait in the lobby had been torn down. And I sat at the head of the table, heels clicking against marble, a calm smile on my face. Let's begin, I said. The boardroom was colder than I remembered. Not just the air conditioning, but the atmosphere, the kind of stiff silence that settles in when every man around the table knows they underestimated the only woman in the room. I didn't mind. In fact, I thrived in it. The executives looked from one another to me, waiting for some sign of leniency, some flicker of doubt or mercy. They'd backed Ethan Carter for years, letting him embezzle under the guise of strategic investments, while brushing off my questions with fake smiles and paper-thin excuses. And now they were realizing that the naive little wife who once brought them coffee was actually the majority shareholder with the power to replace them all. First order of business, I said, tapping my manicured nails against a glass table, is a full forensic audit of the past 3 years. Every transaction. Every vendor. Every shell corporation. One of FEMA VP with slicked back hair and the moral compass of a used car salesman cleared his throat. Claire, with all due respect, these things take time. No. I cut him off. What took time was me giving Ethan every chance to prove himself. That grace period is over. I could see it in their eyes, fear mixed with resentment. They were used to a Carter empire propped up by my name, my funds, and my silence. But now that I'd taken the wheel, they didn't know where the road led her, if they'd survived the drive. Later that day, as I left the building, reporters crowded the sidewalk like vultures. Claire, do you have any comments on Ethan's charges? Is it true Vanessa Sori Madison tried to fake a pregnancy? Will Carter Holdings be merging with Bennett Enterprises? I stopped, adjusted my sunglasses, and smiled for the cameras. The only merger happening is between truth and accountability. The internet devoured it. Memes popped up within hours. My line was stitched on tote bags, mugs, even crop tops. I'd accidentally become a feminist icon overnight. But behind the viral headlines and sharp one-liners, I was still piecing myself back together. Because the truth was, when you spend years pretending to be less, even freedom feels strange at first. That night, as I soaked in the giant marble tub at the Bennett estate, my assistant Julia knocked on the bathroom door. You'll want to see this, she said, sliding in a tablet. It was a leaked video. Ethan, in prison orange, talking to his lawyer. He wasn't crying or broken. He was furious. She thinks she's won, he hissed. But that horse Silver King's still under Carter Holdings' logistics division. If we challenge the ownership, I paused the video. He's trying to come for the horse? Julia nodded grimly. He wants to claim that the logistics transfer makes him part owner. He can try, I muttered, standing up and grabbing a towel. Let's give him a reason to regret it. The next morning, I filed an official declaration. Silver King was being donated to the Bennett Foundation for Equine Therapy, a nonprofit I'd set up the week prior. Once transferred, the horse was no longer an asset, it was a public good. The board couldn't seize it. Ethan couldn't touch it. It was genius. It was petty. It was mine. By the end of the week, Madison had flipped. Facing years in prison and no glam squad, she cut a deal with the FBI and spilled everything. Ethan's offshore accounts, their plans to liquidate my stock after the divorce, the entire web of lies they'd spun. But the part that hurt the most? She claimed Ethan never planned to marry her. He told me I was just his placeholder, she sobbed. Said once Claire's father died, he'd inherit everything anyway. I stared at the screen, numb. Even after I'd handed him success on a silver platter, still seen me as disposable. A stepping stone. A name to borrow until he could stand tall on stolen ground. Claire? Julia asked gently. Are you okay? No, I said. But I will be. The next morning, I visited my father at the stables. He was brushing one of the younger colts, looking more peaceful than I'd seen him in years. You know, he said without turning, I watched that whole stream. You were magnificent. I wasn't trying to be. Exactly. That's what made it real. We stood there for a while, in silence. Then he handed me the brush. Your mother would have loved to see you like this. I swallowed hard. She always told me to be kind, not stupid. He chuckled. You were both. But now? Now you're smart. And kind. That's rare. I didn't cry, not then. I just nodded, brushing the colt's coat and breathing in the scent of hay and cedarwood. The past was behind me. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the years of playing small, they were done. But this story wasn't over. Because Ethan had one last card to play. And I was already holding the ace. Ethan's final move came not in the courtroom or through some cleverly worded press release, but in the dirtiest, most desperate way possible, tried to physically take Silver King back. It happened 2 weeks after I transferred the horse to the Bennett Foundation. We were hosting a fundraiser event on the estate, showcasing how equine therapy was transforming the lives of veterans and children with PTSD. The place was full of donors, camera crews, and families touring the stables when Ethan showed up. No warning. No subtlety. Just him, 2 hired thugs in fake uniforms, and a forged court order. Step away from the stall. He barked at one of the handlers, flashing documents that looked real enough to confuse the gate staff. Silver King was illegally donated. I'm here to repossess him. I had just finished giving a speech inside the event tent when Julia rushed up, pale and breathless. Claire, he's here. He's trying to take the horse. He brought fake legal paperwork and muscle. I didn't panic. I didn't yell. I just turned to the mic, still on from my speech, and said calmly into it, Ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid we're going to have a bit of live entertainment in the stables. The crowd followed me as I strode down the gravel path, heels clicking, silk gown trailing. I wasn't just the girl he underestimated anymore, I was the damn main character. Ethan, I said as I approached. Trying to steal from a nonprofit? That's low, even for you. It's not stealing if it's mine, he snapped. You transferred the horse without my consent. You mean after you signed over full marital rights in a legally binding divorce agreement? That agreement was under duress, he hissed, but even he didn't sound convinced. And the transfer paperwork? Fraudulent. I stepped forward, handed my father's lawyer-hoed Just Ayurveda thick binder. Every signature is notarized. Every file time-stamped. And just for fun, here's the StreamHub clip where you literally sign the divorce papers willingly. Smile for the camera. By then, the crowd had phones out. Someone was live streaming again. Ethan realized it too late. His posture shifted from aggressive to defensive, eyes darting around like a cornered rat. You think this is over? He sneered. This horse, this money, all of it, you only have it because I let you. No, Ethan, I said quietly. I had it in spite of you. His hand twitched, like he might hit me, but before it moved an inch, one of the Bennett security guards stepped between us. You need to leave, sir. Now. You can't do this, he snarled at me. You think you won, but people like me always come back. Not this time, I said. Because people like me don't just survive, we rebuild, and we make sure men like you never get a second chance to destroy someone else's life. He lunged. Not at my butt, at the horse. Maybe he thought taking Silver King would humiliate me, reverse the tide, remind the world of who he used to be. But Silver King didn't move. Didn't flinch. He stood there, solid and still, like even the damn horse knew Ethan Carter was a joke. The guards grabbed him, dragged him back kicking and screaming. Someone in the crowd shouted, This dude's cooked, and the comments on the live stream lit up like fireworks. Bro just ruined his last shred of dignity. She's untouchable. Claire Bennett, teach us your ways. Ethan was arrested again, this time for violating the restraining order I'd filed the week before. Madison, now rebranded back to Madison, Lee issued a public statement from her holding cell claiming she'd been emotionally manipulated and gaslit into crime. The only gas I believed was the one she probably used to light up her fake socialite persona. But none of that mattered anymore. Carter Holdings was under full restructuring. My legal team removed every executive who'd supported Ethan's fraud. I installed a new board, half of them women, all of them competent. For the first time, I walked through the lobby of the company I used to bankroll and it finally felt like mine. Not because my name was etched in the donor plaques, but because I'd earned the respect they once denied me. But power didn't heal everything. One night, alone in the Bennett villa, I opened a dusty drawer and found the first business plan Ethan ever sketched. I remembered how excited he was, how he said, "I just need one shot, Claire. Just one." And I'd given him that. Hell, I gave him 1,000. But he never wanted to build something with me. He wanted to build something out of me. And when that failed, he tried to burn it all down. I folded the paper, lit a match, and watched it curl to ash in the marble fireplace. Some dreams are worth fighting for. Others are just lies dressed in potential. I was done mourning the version of him I once believed in. Because now, it was my turn to dream without limits, without guilt, and without ever shrinking myself to fit someone else's vision. And I wasn't just dreaming for myself anymore. I had plans. Real ones. And someone very unexpected was about to walk back into my life and turn everything upside down. I wasn't expecting to see him again, not after what happened in Manhattan 5 years ago, not after the deal that ruined our friendship and nearly cost my father a $1 billion contract, but there he was, standing at the edge of the Bennett estate in a black coat, holding a single envelope like it weighed more than the past. Noah Sinclair. The man who once turned down a marriage alliance with me in front of a dozen board members because he didn't mix feelings with leverage, and then disappeared into the New York rain without looking back. Back then, I told myself I hated him. Now, I didn't even know what I felt. "You're trespassing," I said flatly, folding my arms as I walked down the gravel path toward him. "And you're underdressed for Texas." "You always did like heat," he replied smoothly, his voice irritatingly calm. "Still wearing heels on gravel, I see. Still thinking sarcasm is charming, I see." He held up the envelope. "I didn't come to fight. I came to return this." I took it slowly, opening it with a single flick. Inside was a contract the original equity split Ethan had once tried to sell to Sinclair and Company. Behind my back. Noah had never signed it. "You kept it," I said quietly. "Of course I did. It was yours." Ethan tried to claim he had full control. "I knew better. And yet you still ghosted me. Because I knew if I stayed, I'd ruin what you were building. I wasn't strong enough to separate business from you." I looked away. Too much had happened since then. Too many betrayals. Too much pain. But the fact that he was here now, after all the drama with Ethan and Madison and Silver King, after all the headlines and scandals and court battles, it meant something. "So what?" I asked. "You want a second chance?" "No," he said. "I want to invest." I blinked. "Excuse me? Carter Holdings is dead weight. You've stripped the rot. You've rebuilt. I want in. Not to own you. Not to rescue you. Just to build something with you for real this time." I didn't answer. I couldn't. My brain was still trying to decide if this was a setup, a twist, or maybe just fate with a sense of irony. He slid a proposal into my hand, then stepped back. "You don't have to decide now. Just know this. I didn't come because of your last name. I came because I've been watching. You turned a PR disaster into a national movement. You exposed corruption with more poise than Congress. You made a horse go viral. You're not just Claire Bennett, you're the Bennett legacy redefined. And you think a few sweet words and a clean contract make up for disappearing without a word?" "No," he said. But I figured it was a better start than a wedding proposal. Damn him for still knowing how to make me laugh when I didn't want to. He left without waiting for a reply. Smart. I would have slammed the gate in his face if he stayed a minute longer. But when I went back inside, the contract sat on my desk like it had always belonged there. Julia peeked in an hour later, eyebrows raised. Was that Noah Sinclair I saw near the stables? Unfortunately, I muttered. He wants to invest. Do you want him to? I didn't answer. Instead, I slid open the window, staring out at Silver King grazing calmly under the Texas sun. I want to win, I said. And I'm not sure if trusting him helps or hurts. But deep down, I already knew I was going to say yes. Not because of history. Not because of closure. But because my next move was going to be bigger than Ethan, bigger than Carter Holdings, bigger than revenge. I was going to build something untouchable. And maybe, just maybe, I didn't have to do it alone. The media didn't take long to catch wind of Noah's reappearance. Former rival returns to court the queen of comebacks. One headline read. Another screamed, Claire Bennett and Billionaire Heartbreaker. Back in business? But I didn't give them anything to feed on. No confirmations. No denials. Just silence and a red dress at a gala that said everything without saying a word. At the annual Bennett Foundation Gala, I stood at the top of the marble stairs, clutching a glass of champagne and watching the city's elite pretend to understand philanthropy. Then, just as expected, Ethan's mother stormed in fur coat, pearl clutch, and a face full of fury. You ruined my son, she spat. You embarrassed our family. I tilted my head. Your son ruined himself. I just stopped covering for him. You'll pay for this, Claire. You think you're untouchable. I smiled. No. But I am heavily insured and very well represented. Julia appeared like clockwork with security. Escort Mrs. Carter to her car, please. I'm still his mother, she shrieked. And I'm still the woman who owns the building you're standing in, I said coolly. Have a nice night. As she was dragged out, reporter asked, Is it true she tried to bribe a judge? I didn't even blink. No comment. But inside, I was already planning my next chess move. Because when someone like Ethan's mother threatens you in public, it means something else is brewing in private. And I had no intention of being caught off guard again. When the invitation arrived in a black velvet envelope with a gold seal pressed into its flap, I already knew who it was from before I even opened it. Ethan's mother wasn't the type to beg, but she was absolutely the type to scheme, and this smelled like a last-ditch attempt at saving face. The card read, Private mediation dinner for the sake of legacy. I almost laughed. Legacy? The same legacy her son tried to dismantle one forged signature at a time? But I wasn't stupid. If she wanted to meet, that meant something was slipping from her control. So I said yes, not because I owed her anything, but because I knew Ethan's side was crumbling faster than she could patch it. The dinner was held at a rooftop restaurant in downtown Dallas, the kind with sweeping city views and jazz music playing just loud enough to drown out bad intentions. She arrived with the same practiced elegance she'd always worn, like armor, pearls, wine-colored lipstick, and that icy smile that never quite reached her eyes. Claire, she said, sitting opposite me without a handshake. You look competent. You look desperate, I replied, sipping my drink. Shall we skip the small talk? Very well, she snapped. Ethan's been offered a plea deal. 5 years if he surrenders all remaining assets. Smart move. He should take it. I want you to speak on his behalf. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. You want me to help reduce his sentence? He's still the father of your... Stop. Don't you dare finish that sentence. Ethan and I never had children, and thank every star in the sky for that. You're punishing him more than the law ever could. You've humiliated him, destroyed his business, his future. He did that. I just turned on the lights and let people see the mess. She leaned forward. What will it take, Claire? Name your price. I smiled, slow and sharp. My price was dignity. And you already watched him bankrupt it. She looked away for the first time, jaw tight. He loved you in his own way. Then his way is exactly why I'll never let him near my world again. The rest of the dinner was silence. She left without finishing her meal. I stayed, alone at the table, watching the Dallas skyline flicker like a promise. The next morning, my assistant slid a file onto my desk. Final sentencing report. Ethan took the plea. 5 years, with mandatory financial restitution. Vanessa sorry. Madison got 3. Good. Let the story close itself. And this, she added, handing me a slim USB drive, was found in his personal vault. Labeled Claire for release if I die. Morbid. Typical. I plugged it in anyway, curiosity stronger than caution. It was a video. Ethan, sitting in a dimly lit office, looking gaunter than I remembered. If you're watching this, he began, I guess I either went to prison or pissed off the wrong person. Either way, I just wanted to say, you were right. About everything. I wasn't enough for you. And instead of rising to meet you, I tried to drag you down. I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope someday someone loves you like you deserve. I stared at the screen after it ended, unsure whether to cry or roll my eyes. It wasn't an apology, it was a eulogy for the man he could have been. I closed the file. Deleted the video. Some ghosts aren't worth keeping. That week, I announced the launch of my newest venture, Bennett Equinox, a hybrid enterprise combining sustainable equestrian therapy, female-led venture capital, and digital wellness platforms. The press called it revolutionary. I called it overdue. Investors poured in, including, surprisingly, Noah Sinclair. I'm not here to distract you, he said over brunch the day we signed the deal. I'm just here to make sure you don't have to do this alone unless you want to. I still haven't decided, I teased. On what? Whether you're part of my future. Or just a chapter I'm finishing right. He didn't push. He didn't chase. He just smiled and said, then I'll keep showing up until the story tells us. And that was the first time in years I felt something that wasn't survival or rage or control, it was possibility. The headlines eventually faded. The memes slowed. Silver King remained the calmest thing in my life, grazing outside my office window like a gentle reminder that everything they tried to steal still belonged to me. I didn't win because I was crueler than them. I won because I remembered who I was after they forgot. I won because I stopped waiting for justice and started being my own reckoning. And now, every time someone asks me what it feels like to lose everything and come back stronger, I just smile and say, it feels like finally breathing with your own lungs. No borrowed names. No fake husbands. No cage disguised as a marriage. It feels like freedom. And I plan to ride it all the way into whatever future I choose, one that no one will ever own but me.